Din, 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 din. Bam, bam, bam. Da-dum. Boom, 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 ba-dum. Greetings, family. Greetings. We got story time. We got story time, y'all. We got to get some of these short stories read. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more stories. We're going to get a few of them done this evening. And this is from Lyrical Lexa. Y'all ready? Lyrical Lexa. And it is called Sacrifices. Let's check that. Oh, child, you didn't wrote. This is a novel. This ain't no short story. Oh, see, that's why we can only get a couple of them done because they is long. Some of them is too short, but okay. All right. Oh, child, go ahead on. Nobody care about your sex stuff. Goodness, we don't care. That's why you fucking was blocked. Stupid dookie head ass bitch. Maybe getting deep into it. A spoken word session. We could do that. Your ass better be spoken the word Wednesday, damn it, Chaz. We need more conversations. Spoken the damn word. Spoken the word Wednesday, Chaz. Get your ass. So I have another idea for short story contest. Okay. All right. All right. So this is Lyrical Lexa. Her story is called Sacrifices. Oh, this little hip was trying to go to sleep. All right, here we go. I remember the first time I saw him. It was the beginning of my freshman year at Sumter County High. I had never been so nervous in all my life. All of the plays and recitals that I'd done as a kid were nothing compared to this. I had my outfit picked out 2 weeks ahead of time. Black Nike high top Air Force Ones with a red swoosh, a dark denim dress cut short with overall straps. That's cute. I wore cornrows all summer, so my hair grew like 3 inches just from me leaving it alone. I got it blown out and pressed straight, so it laid well past my shoulders now. I was always the flyest chick in school. There was no questioning that. From the looks of things, that wasn't about to change. D3, I said aloud to myself. I was looking for my homeroom. High school was nothing like my old stomping ground across the street, Sumter Middle. This place was huge. Universities would probably be something like a shopping mall. Just as I was about to get lost in that thought, I remembered I was still lost in these hallways. I stopped and turned around, looking up to find one of those letters on the wall somewhere. C4. I must be getting close, I said aloud again. Then I heard a deep voice say, "Who are you talking to?" I looked over and there he was, Up until this point in my life, I hadn't seen anyone as beautiful as he was, except for Tupac. He favored him a little. My sister used to keep a Tupac poster on her wall. She and I are 10 years apart, so she was a teenager when he died. I was a baby and didn't quite understand why she was crying, but I can understand now. This guy had dark brown skin, that flashed his teeth, a big smile that flashed his white teeth. I was like a deer in headlights, frozen. He walked right up to me and said, "Let me see." As he glanced over the papers in my hand, I could see that he had long curly eyelashes. A jolt of electricity ran through my body like a current. "No wonder I never seen you before. You a freshman." Amani? I would have remembered that. I stared. "Go back the way you came, then make a right at the end of this hall. D3 is around the corner." Before I had a chance to at least make an attempt to speak, a guy who looked like he had to be a junior yelled, "Gerard, what up? Rob boy, where you been?" He quickly walked over. "Hey, Danny, would you pull this door up for me?" Gratitude. And I feel like I can kind of read a little bit loud. I feel like I was trying to whisper because I didn't want to be disturbing. Okay. He said, "Where you been?" He quickly walked over and they dapped each other like old buddies. I gathered myself and started walking in the direction he suggested. I glanced over my shoulder to give one last look, and to my surprise, he was looking back too. When I got home, I plugged my earbuds into my iPod and laid across my bed. I listened to Fantasia's "When I See You" on repeat the rest of the night. She crooned, "What's happening to me in the dark? Can you tell me what it means?" Got me staring out the window. Say for the next few weeks, he was all I could think about. I got dressed with him in mind. I mean, it be like that. I got dressed with him in mind in the morning and thought about him before I slept at night. I always packed my lunch, but I would have, but I would get in the cafeteria line just to stand behind him. I'd give him a look every time I saw him pass in the hallways, and I felt like he was giving me looks back. He was very popular, especially with the girls. Everybody knew he wanted to be a rapper, and everybody knew he was really good. He held a pencil behind his ear in case he needed to jot down a rhyme. I was an orchestra kid, first chair, first violin. That's basically like being the captain of the cheerleading team, just not as cool. If I continued to play my cards right, my instructors said that I was well on my way to getting a scholarship. My best friend Jasmine was also in the orchestra. We known each other since the sixth grade, and we've been inseparable since. If I wasn't at her house, she was at mine. On our way to class one day, I finally worked up enough courage to ask her what she thought about Gerard. "I know he's a grade above us, but do you think I have a shot?" She looked at me with a half smirk on her face and said, "Girl, you really want him?" "Everybody do though. Plus he got a girlfriend." I looked at her quickly and she must have seen the hurt in my expression. "Yeah, he's with Amber and we all know how she get down." I felt so childish in that moment. Here I was thinking that him and I were making some sort of progress, smiling at each other in passing. Meanwhile, Amber is giving it up. Right then and there, I decided to to give up too. At least for now, it's not like I'd have plenty of admirers myself. Freshman year flew by. I focused on getting good grades, mastering my violin, and even played a little softball. In my sophomore year, I started going out with Calvin. He was a senior on the varsity basketball team, and everybody said that we were a really cute couple. We were really cute together. I went to his games, and he even came to my orchestra recitals. We talked about going to the same college, what our babies would look like, and even getting married one day. Midterms, finals, and by the time I knew it, The school year was almost over. Calvin made a huge deal out of asking me to the prom. He had everyone gather around in the common area. I had no idea what all the commotion was about. I kept walking around trying to see what was so important. I found Calvin dressed up and holding the box. He motioned for me to come toward him, and that's when I realized that everyone had been looking at me. He opened the box and it was full of little gifts. At the bottom, there were a smaller box. I opened it and there was a note inside that read, "Will you go to the prom with me?" Oh, that's sweet. Everyone in the common area erupted with laughter and oaths. It was the talk of the town for the next week or so, to the point where even teachers were making little jokes to me about it. We finished the school year and all was well. On summer break, Jasmine and I were thick as thieves, as we always were. We liked hanging out at her house more during the summer because we had more freedom. At my house, it was just my mom and I. If I wanted to go anywhere, we had to ask, and she had to know every detail before she agreed. Jasmine always had older cousins or a big sister that we could get around with. She lived close enough to the local park, so we would walk there and watch all the guys play. One of our favorite pastimes. On a hot June afternoon, we ate lunch, then headed to the park. Jasmine was talking to a guy from school named Khalil, one of my favorite names, and he told her to meet him there today. He walked around the court showing off our we walked around the court showing off our tight jeans and crop tops. It was summer, so I had my hair in cornrows again, with a few pretty little beads at the end of each one. My caramel colored skin turned penny copper brown out there in the sun. Jasmine had her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She had rich, dark brown skin, a petite figure, and a slim face with squinty shaped eyes. Right before we sat down, she waved and yelled, "Khalil!" He turned around and smiled. He turned and smiled, but so did the guy next to him. It was Gerard. My, my stomach dropped and my heart started to race. He gave me a sly grin and turned to play. What was that about? While we watched the game, Jasmine said, "You're real quiet. What's up?" She paused, looked at the court again, and said, "Oh, you happy go Gerard." I exclaimed, "That's not true." She threw her hands up and said, "Excuse me, my bad." The guys played what felt like the longest game ever. In a way, I was happy because they gave me more time to figure out what to say and how to act. Should I say anything? They gave Maybe I should act unbothered. The guys started to wrap up the game and I made sure my lip gloss was popping. And period. Jasmine went to chop it up with Khalil and I sat nervously by myself. Gerard started walking towards the bench I was sitting on. I told myself to just be cool. Like, I'm not, you'd be like, just be cool, bitch. Okay. "What's up, stranger?" he said as he flashed those pearly whites, and it was freshman year all over again. "I'm a stranger?" I sounded more interested than I meant to. "Yeah, since you want to go to prom with lames, where's your little boyfriend?" He tried it. He tried it. My mouth fell wide open. "He's out of town for a couple of weeks. And since when do you care who I go to prom with?" With an upset kind of look on his face, he looked down at the ground and shrugged. "I don't." There was a short pause, and I asked, "Aren't you with Amber?" He chuckled and said that they broke up over spring break. I must have gotten a little lost in my thoughts because he said, "Look, I'm having a birthday party at my boy's house tonight. You should come." I told him I would think about it, and he said, "Okay." He said, "Okay, Amani." I turned to walk away and almost melted. He remembered my name. I asked if I could spend the night at Jasmine's, and it was on. Later, when Jasmine and I were getting ready to go, I asked why she didn't tell me that she was going to his party. Well, I know how you feel about Gerard, and I was just going to see Khalil anyway. I shrugged and let it go. Plus, you and Mr. Perfect, I mean Calvin, seem to be doing good. Speaking of, does does he know you're going to Gerard's birthday? I looked at her, making sure she knew I'm in business, and said no, and he doesn't need to know. She raised her eyebrows, saying, "Okay, girl, I was just asking." Her phone rang. She answered, paused, and then said, "Okay, we coming." Everyone was tucked away in their rooms around 9:30 at Jasmine's house. All we had to do was make it out the front door. Once outside, we hopped in Khalil's ride. He was waiting with the headlights off, so that told me they did this often. We outside a sigh of relief as we drove out the neighborhood. We talked about who was going to be there and bumped Gucci Mane on the way. Child, I would not want to go back to these days. I'm not kidding. I would not want to go back to these days, okay? We pulled into a neighborhood called Trotter's Way, and I could tell which house we were going to already because all the lights were on. It was Mark's house, and it was huge. He was supposed to be a senior this year, but he got held back twice. His mom was a lawyer, but Mark wanted to be thuggish so bad. She must have been out of town. As we walked towards the house, I started to have all kinds of thoughts. I'd never been to a party. Do I dance? Are they drinking? Thinking about what I wore tonight gave me the confidence I needed. I had on I had on apple bottom jeans, toe boots with the furs, apple bottom jeans, and a one shoulder white baby fat top that had gold lettering. I wore a big gold hoops, and crispy white Air Force Ones. I put a little blush on my cheeks, Crestman flavored lip gloss, and my baby hairs were laid for days. Mark answered the door, excited to see Khalil. "What's up? Took you long enough, and I can see why," he said. He said this looking he said this looking Jasmine and I up and down. We stepped in and people were everywhere. Music was jamming. Jasmine and Khalil started walking towards the back, and before I could say anything, Mark had his arms around my shoulders. "So what's your name?" He slurred his words a little. "Amani." I feel like that's how she said it. "Amani." I responded half heartedly, "Well, Amani." Just as he was about to get his lazy Mac on, Gerard walked up with a concerned look on his face. He said, "What's up, Mark?" But it sounded more like, "You good?" Mark looks up, blinks a few times, and says, "Rob, what up? You having a good time?" "I was just talking to my new friend Amani here," and Gerard cuts him off. "I got it from here, man." Confused, Mark goes, "What you mean?" We was just noticing the look on Gerard's face. He has an epiphany. "Oh, this is the Amani you was talking about." "Oh wow, he'll do that to him though. He'll do that to him." I'm gonna repeat that line. "Oh, this is the Amani you was talking about." Cutting him off again, Gerard says, "I said I got it from here, man." He put his arm around me and we started walking towards the kitchen. He walked to the counter and made a drink. I thought he was making it for himself and he handed it to me. I was hesitant to take it and he said, "Wait, you've never had a drink before?" I tasted some of my mom's wine in the fridge once, but that was as far as it went. I shook my head. "No, you don't have to. I just thought you might want a little something to help you loosen up." Was I stiff? Could he tell that this was my first party? I took the red cup out of his hand and took a big gulp and instantly regretted it. It burned going down, making me wince. "Dang, Shorty, you supposed to sip it, but but if that's how you want to get down, be my guest." We both laughed. He grabbed my hand and we went outside to get some fresh air while we drank. I don't know if it was the fact that this was the first time we had a chance to really talk or the alcohol, but we talked about everything. He told me about his life growing up and how a lot of his family and friends had either died or gotten locked up. "How have you been able to deal with all of this?" I asked, genuinely impressed. He looked at me slowly and said, "I put it in my rhymes." Hold on. Gotta get my leg up out of here, child. Mm, okay. Mm, I put it in my rhymes. I think that's why people support me the way they do because it's all real. I loved him even more. Now she didn't fall in love. I loved him even more. It's getting a little chilly out here. Let me take you inside. Suddenly, the idea of all that music and all those people wasn't cool to me anymore. I like being alone with you, though. Plus, the combination of his arm around me and the alcohol had me as warm as I ever needed to be. He flashed that smile I couldn't resist and said, I got somewhere for us to go. Mark's house was huge, so it was nothing for us to find a room upstairs. He laid down on the bed. He sat, wait, wait. We laid down on the bed. He sat half up with his back against the headboard, facing up towards him. I put my head in his lap and let my legs hang off the bed the opposite way. We talked for a little while longer and then he kissed me. Maybe it was the drink, but I made the decision to let go and do whatever it took to make him mine. Now that I had his attention, I was going to keep it. That night was a night of many firsts for me. So she done had her first drink, her first party, her first kiss, her first do it all in one night. Okay, part 5. He called me every night after that. I looked forward to talking to Gerard so much that I hadn't even realized that Calvin hadn't called me in a week. That was unusual. Calvin graduated this year and was going to UGA, which was the school we planned on going to together. I figured that he'd be busy getting ready for school, or maybe he just saw something he liked and forgot about me. I was a junior in high school, not even officially until we get back to school in August. I started thinking that I should call him and set him free. I dialed his number and the number rang for a long time. He finally picked up. Hello. He sounded irritated. I looked around my room, taken back. Hi, Calvin. You sound busy and I don't want to hold you up. I was just thinking. Before I could finish, he said, thinking. Is that what you were doing in the room with that thug, Rod? I felt a hot flash go through my body and my breathing became shallow. Who the fuck then told him? Who the fuck then told him? Ain't this a beach? I felt the hot flash go through my body and my breathing became shallow. I stumbled over my words. Who told you that? I was going to end things with Calvin, but I didn't want them to end like this. I was mortified. Doesn't matter who told me. You were just going to have me out here looking stupid. That angered that angered me, and I said, "Well, you know what, Calvin? You're going off to UGA. We were never going to make it after you left for college. Jasmine told me this would happen." He came back at me quickly. You say it like I'm going across the country. It's 3 hours away. And Jasmine told you that? You got to be kidding me. What's that supposed to mean? Before I could ask, he said, "You know what, Amani? I can have any girl I want, but I was going to make it happen with you. Don't come checking for me when I get drafted. You need to get your mind right." Click. He hung up on me, and that was that. Telling you, Jasmine told the friend, you fucking know it, Cat. Jasmine told. And when we went back to school that year, Gerard and I were inseparable. I got exactly what I wanted. I was the envy of all the girls and guys, barely even looked my way anymore because of the reputation that Gerard, his friends, and family had. October rolled around and so did homecoming. I went dress shopping with Jasmine, but I wasn't picking out a dress. She asked, Girl, you sure you don't want to go? That's not like you. You go to all the dances. I sighed. Yeah, I'm sure. Haven't been feeling like myself lately. Plus, I don't think dances are really Gerard's thing. Jasmine rolled her eyes. Gerard this, Gerard that. I canceled my violin lessons the past few weeks and missed a few homework assignments. I was so enamored with my new relationship that I hadn't even thought about it, nor did I care. I was so sleepily late that I hadn't kept up with homecoming or any of the parties going on. After homecoming ended, I talked on the phone to catch up on all the latest gossip with Jasmine since I was out of the loop. She told me Everybody's business. Everyone is talking about the party at Tim's house. Did you go? Was Gerard there? She paused for a few seconds. Oh, yeah, that party was okay. He was there. Really? He didn't tell me about that one. Later, when I called him and asked about it, he said he had the same kind of reaction. Why didn't you tell me you Why didn't you tell me you went to Tim's? He cleared his throat and said, Oh, it was cool. I figured with you being tired and all, you wouldn't really be interested. He had a point. I didn't have energy for parties and sneaking out the past month or so. This bitch is pregnant. She's pregnant. You know the fuck she's pregnant. No, she pregnant. And Jasmine is already fucking with him. Dirty bitch. The next day at school was I was in history class when all of a sudden I started to feel nauseous. I didn't even I didn't even ask to go. I just excused myself and went to the restroom. Child, I was pregnant at school. That shit is no good. I used to be throwing up all over the hallways. They was sick of my shit. I didn't even ask to go. I just excused myself and went to the restroom. I threw up and told myself that turkey I used for my lunch sandwich had probably gone bad. No big deal. I'll just throw it out when I get home. I felt hot and a little delirious as I went to stop by my locker. I needed to get some air before I went back to class. My locker wasn't your typical locker, as I had a mirror stuck to the inside of the door, shelves, and all the lip gloss I would need. I took a look at myself in the mirror, and just as I did, I saw Amber and her crew in the reflection. She sucked her teeth, and I'm sure I heard her say, She thinks she out there and so smart. That's why our homegirl Jasmine got with Rod the other night, and everybody know it. Told you, told you. One of her minions said, Yeah, she can't be that smart. They walked off laughing, and I couldn't believe my ears. I felt nauseous and went back to the restroom. Later that night, I called Jasmine. Disturbed, she picked up. Hello? I didn't waste any time. Jasmine, what's this rumor about you and Gerard? She chuckled. Girl, who told you about that? I didn't think anything was funny. Is it true or not? She told me to calm down and asked who told me such a thing. I heard Amber and her crew talking about it in the hallway. She let out a huge laugh, and that was somehow a little reassuring. Amber, Gerard's ex? Of course she's going to say something stupid like that. She's a hater. Come on, Amani. She was right. I'm tripping. I haven't really been myself lately. Amani, you've been saying this for a while now. How long has it been since your last period? Bitch, don't try to act like that, because you fucking with him. Beat you up in the hallway, bitch. Since your last period. I hadn't even thought about that. I got chills. We made plans to go to the store on the weekend, take a pregnancy test at her house. Part 7. Saturday came quickly. Jasmine and I were in the bathroom at her house. What does it say? I couldn't look at it, so I had her read it for me. She was taking a long time. What does two vertical lines mean? My heart sank. It was positive. Oh, God, no. What was I going to do? My mom would kill me if she found out. I started having a meltdown, and Jasmine said, Uh-oh. Didn't you and Gerard use protection? In between sniffling and tears, I said, Not every time. She sighed, You're supposed to use it every time if you're not on birth control. I looked up and asked, Are you? She said, Of course. Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged and said, I figured you knew. And everything just happened so fast with you two. She was right. Ever since him and I got together, I didn't care about anything else. I've been slacking in school and going back and forth to the studio with Gerard. I'd forgotten all about my own music. That was the least of my worries. What now? Jasmine must have read my mind because she asked the same question. I hadn't gotten that far yet. If you keep it, you'll be walking around school with a big belly. And what about Gerard and his rap career? This would definitely slow him down. That echoed in my mind for the next couple days. I listened to Erica Badu when I needed to figure things out. And didn't you know, she spoke to my soul as she repeated, I'm trying to decide which way to go. Think I made a wrong turn back there somewhere. Ooh, ooh, Okay, part 8. I finally built up the courage to tell Gerard. I called him late night after everyone was asleep. What's up, Shorty? I gave him a quiet, hey. And he said, What's wrong? I told him that we needed to talk. He got frustrated and said, If you still tripping on Tim's party, it's just Amber and her homegirls trying to break us up. I told him that wasn't it. Gerard, I'm pregnant. There was a long pause. Hello? He cleared his throat and said, "Yeah, I'm here. What do you want to do?" I told him that I was confused. After some silence on the phone, he said, "I got some good news and some bad news." Not in the mood for jokes, I asked, "What do you mean?" The bad news is I don't think we're ready to have a baby right now. The good news is we can always have one later, and I want you to come with me. I was confused. Come with you where? To Atlanta. My cousin Mike got some connects, and he said they might be interested in signing me. I thought about it for a moment. What would I do in Atlanta? He answered my question before I could ask and said, "We can get an apartment. And as soon as I get an advance and the money starts coming in, we can live in style." A couple days later, Jasmine went with me to the clinic. It was a sad day, but I knew this had to be done. Gerard had future plans for us, girl bear, and I wanted so badly to leave the past behind. I decided to drop out of school and get my GED. Taking a test would be easy, but I was supposed to graduate early anyway. I only stayed in school because my mom wanted me to have a normal high school experience. There was nothing normal about it anymore. My mom also thought that I lost my mind, but she couldn't figure out why. She wanted me to stay home and go to therapy, but I emancipated and left with my man to Atlanta, the city of big lights and big opportunities. College would always be there. Sacrifice had to be made. Girl, shut your ass up. I want to punch and thump her in her forehead real hard like this. One of these thumps, like, bow. I want to do her like that. That summer, Jasmine drove down to Atlanta to visit me. She had an aunt who lived here. Bitch, stay your ass wherever the fuck they was living at. She had an aunt who lived here so she could stay as long as she wanted. Gerard, Gerard and I had a modest apartment on the east side. It wasn't perfect, but we were together. I was so relieved to see her when I opened the door. "Girl, how have you been? And what's up at Sumter High? You gotta fill me in." We gave each other a long, silly hug. "Oh, excuse our apartment." Gerard and his homies come back here after they leave the studio, smoke and crash. She looked around while saying, "It's cool, girl. How are you though?" I let out a deep breath. "Honestly, I got my GD a few months ago. I've been working at TJ Maxx, and it's definitely not my favorite thing to do, but it pays the bills." She raised an eyebrow, and I knew what she was thinking. "Rod pitches in when he can, but we came here for his music. He has to focus. It's all going to pay off." She gave me a reassuring smile and said that she believed in me and our dream. "You're not really missing anything at Sumter High. Amber is talking trash about you and Rod every chance she gets. We got a good laugh out of that." After a moment, she said, "I think I'm going to move here after graduation." "Get out of here. What makes you say that?" She smiled. "It's just popping out here. Plus, there's Georgia State, and the guys are super fine. I thought that would be so nice having my best friend around." Part 10. "Hey baby, it's me. Just checking in. I haven't heard from you in a couple days. Maybe you came home when I was at work, but there's lasagna in the fridge if you get hungry before I get back." I left Gerard a voicemail. Normally I wouldn't trip, but I didn't hear from him, but something felt different today. I sent Jasmine a text asking her to call me, but when she got a chance, I had a cheeseburger with chili fries to make me feel better on my lunch break. I must have zoned out at work because one of the customers said, "Ma'am, it says here waiting on the cashier." I apologized and ran the payment through. I don't know how long I've been sitting there. I clocked out later and took the bus home. "What About Us" by Total featuring Missy Elliott popped up on the playlist before my stop. I listened to it. I listened to it on the rest of the walk home. Surely he will be back today. I know that artists are busy and they stay out late, but he could never resist my lasagna. I walked up to the two flights of stairs to get to our apartment. I opened the door and immediately I knew something was wrong. Gerard kept some recording equipment set up in the living room. It was gone. We didn't live in the best part of town, so I assumed that someone had broken in. I tiptoed around to see what else was stolen. Everything seemed pretty normal, but when I got in our bedroom, I noticed that all of my things were still intact. I frantically started going through his drawers. All of his clothes were gone. I went to the bathroom and even his toothbrush was missing. That sent me over the edge. I broke down crying. Would he really do this? Leave me high and dry after everything I've done for him? For us? I called him exactly 17 times in a row. I text Jasmine a message that said, simply read 911. I got no message, no answer from either of them. What was happening? Part 11. A few days passed. There was a guy that always tried to sell me weed at the bus stop, and I normally said no, but I started smoking just to help me relax. My nerves were shot. It was all I could think about. On a bus ride to work, I felt like a zombie. I used to feel motivated going to TJ Maxx, thinking it was for our future. Now I didn't know what I was doing. I thought he loved me. I thought we loved each other. On top of all that, I couldn't even talk to my best friend about it. She probably forgot to pay her phone bill or something. I got through half the workday before my manager told me that I could leave early. I said that I had the flu and just needed a couple days to rest. Thank God she believed me. I listened to After the Hurricane by Jasmine Sullivan on the way home. She knew exactly how I felt when she sang. The way you break everything that comes in your way. I decided to try calling Jasmine again when I got back home. She answered and I was so relieved. Oh God, where have you been? I heard loud music in the background. It sounded like Gerard's music. I thought about it for a second and remembered that he hadn't released the song yet. Is that Rod's new tape? She responded. Hey girl, his tape? No, are you're hearing things. What's up? I dropped my head and said, where do I start? I heard voices and music in the background. Where are you and why does it sound like the studio? I heard her say, I'll be right back. And a deep voice followed. Is that Gerard? I screamed into the phone. Look, I didn't want you to find out like this, but at this point you will eventually. Her words stung like venom. I came down here to be with Rod. He needs a girl like me on this bitch. He needs a girl like me on his arm. You're too square for all this industry shit, and you know it. I choked on my words. What do you mean, be with Rod? I felt sick to my stomach. Just what I said, be with him. And since we're keeping it real, I've been getting with him since Tim's party during homecoming. The rumors were true. You're just so naive. You bought everything we told you. I could barely speak. How could you, Jasmine? She shot back. How could I? You've always thought you were all that because you had designer clothes, long hair, and caramel skin. You dated the best guys in school and acted like it was nothing. Well, it's time for somebody else to be on top. Rod is about to blow up, and you're going to see me everywhere with him. With him. Oh, and by the way, I told Calvin about you and how you got down at Rod's birthday party. I told y'all. She told them. I told y'all. I told y'all. She told. I mean. I knew the bitch told. Oh, and by the way, I told Calvin about how you got down at Rod's birthday party. Don't call us no more. That little snake hung up in my face. When I tried to call back and text, she blocked me. This had to be a nightmare. It was too much for me to handle. Music was the only thing that held me together in times like this. I put Hate You by Mariah Carey on repeat and somehow managed to get some sleep later on that night. Bust her head to the fucking white meat. You hear me? Part 12. I continued to work my job at TJ Maxx for another year or so. My mom called me after work one day and said, Hey, honey, are you sitting down? I have something to tell you. It's about Jasmine. I stopped her right there and said, Mom, I know she's with Gerard. His music took off and those two are all over the blogs. I really don't want to hear anything about it. She got quiet and finally said, Jasmine died, honey. She was shot. And she was shot. My emotions were so mixed that I couldn't pick one to feel. Amani, are you there? Tears made of anger and confusion fell down my face. We had a long conversation, and I told her everything that happened in the past few years. She was shocked, but surprisingly very understanding. First of all, I'd have been pissed at Amani as her mother because what do you mean over the past few years you never fucking told your mother what happened? I would have been so pissed. No, I'd have been pissed. I wouldn't have been no understanding. I'm getting ready to come to Atlanta and crack your motherfucking head to the white meat. Because why wouldn't you tell me? Mm-mm. Well, what do you want to do now? I spoke to Jasmine's mother today. Do you want to go to her funeral? She asked with a concerned voice. You can always come back home. I thought about it for a moment. No, I think I want to figure this out on my own. She sighed. Okay, I understand. Hey, before you go, my friend Tina said her daughter just got into real estate and she's doing real good. Maybe you could look into it. I told her I would. 2 weeks later, I was riding the bus on the way back from work, listening to Angel and in Disguise by Brandy. I looked out the window to my right and asked myself, where am I going? I looked into my left. I looked to my left and saw someone with a binder full of information that caught my eye. It read Georgia Real Estate Licensing Exam. I took that as a sign. I went to the library that weekend and Googled the nearest real estate school. I applied and went on my day off. I decided to use all the little savings I had to get all the materials and pay for class. Part 13. 3 months later, excuse me, I don't know how she got shot. Excuse me. 3 months later, and it would be official, I was a licensed real estate salesperson. It took me a little while to get the swing of things. I stayed optimistic and closed my first couple deals in the first year. I continued networking a couple years later. I was Atlanta's go-to girl for real estate. I met doctors, lawyers, entertainers, you name it. Life was good and finally made so much sense to me. I got a call from Rebecca, a girl I went to school with. We kept in touch and bounced ideas off of each other from time to time. I answered, hey girl, how are you? She sounded excited. Hey, I have a big lead for you. I would love to do it myself, but you know I'm pregnant and out of town with my husband. He doesn't want me to lift a finger. Anyway, there's a rapper in search oh shit. In search I knew it was about to come in search of $1 million home. Can you take him? I chuckled. Absolutely. Good looking out, girl. She sent me the information and I got on it. I spoke with the rapper's management to coordinate the showing of the house. He must be big time, I thought. Still, this wasn't uncommon for me. I met tons of rappers doing this work. Thursday, 1 p.m. on a Sunday, April afternoon, I waited outside this beautiful mansion for the mystery rapper. He was 15 minutes late. I didn't mind. The commission was about to be insane. I heard music bumping in the distance and I knew it was time. I straightened my Gucci skirt suit and ran my hands through my fresh blowout. He stepped out of the car and I couldn't believe my eyes. What's up, Shorty? I stammered. Gerard? You mean Lil Rod? He corrected me, flashing those big white teeth. This had to be a joke. Of course, I knew about Lil Rod. Who didn't? His music was everywhere. I just never thought I would ever have to see him again. Be cool, I thought to myself. I was nervous and it was like high school all over. I remembered all those feelings, all the pain him and Jasmine put me through. I decided to stay completely professional, show him the house, and get the hell out of there. This way, little Rod. I showed him every square inch of that mansion. It took at least 45 minutes. He smiled at me the whole time, asking questions about every little detail. We finally made it back to the driveway and I gave him the usual information I gave every I gave to every potential client at the end of a showing, just less enthusiastic. Is that your ride? I turned and looked back at my Lexus and then turned back at him. Yes, it is. He whistled and said, that's what's up. Let me buy you another one. I rolled my eyes. No, thank you, sir. He exhaled heavily. Now, come on, Amani. Let's cut the professional act out. Did you think this was by chance? I set all this up. I want to buy this house for us. Nigga! Girl! Nigga, punk and buy, bitch. You said I shot her for all the fuckery she did and stuff. Okay, period. I mean, okay. I want to buy this house for us. I felt an old flash of anger. For us? Was it for us when you left me in an old apartment to fend for myself? Was it for us when you left me for my best friend and paraded her all over town? She died and I couldn't even bear to go to her funeral. I felt myself getting worked up, so I turned to leave. Amani, you're not listening to me. I had to leave you the way I did. Sacrifices had to be made. Jasmine thought she was playing chess, but she was really playing checkers. That stopped me in my tracks. What does that even mean, Gerard? He dropped his head and then said, maybe you'll understand one day, hopefully not. That's what I always loved about you. You were pure and always trying to see the best in people. Can you see the best in me now? I told you that we could have another baby one day, and I'm here to make good on my promises. Nigga. His eyes were pleading. A small part of myself wanted to reach out to him. I looked at him, then over to looked at him and then over to the beautiful mansion. I spent the moment envisioning what our life could be. The cars, the home, the babies, traveling, his concerts. It all flashed before my eyes. I heard a little voice in my head say, don't do it. And period. It snapped me back into reality. I looked into his eyes for the last time and said, I wish I could, Gerard, but you can't be trusted. I turned to walk away with tears in my eyes. He called to me louder each time, Amani, Amani, please. I got in my white Lexus and listened to Changed by Maxwell on the way home. Just like him, I had changed my mind too. I hadn't gotten on the internet much the past few years unless it was to study or work. I couldn't stand to hear anything about Gerard or Jasmine. I decided to get on YouTube tonight and see if there's any information on what really happened to Jasmine. After I typed in the names, I was flooded with conspiracy sacrifice videos. There was that word again. I remembered him saying something about making a sacrifice earlier. People on the internet seemed to be convinced that Gerard had everything to do with her murder, even breaking it down with numbers and dates. A cold chill went down my spine. I never really believed in this sort of stuff before, but the videos were compelling. I decided that I had enough wine and internet for one night and promised myself to never look into it again. I looked around my beautiful home and felt so proud of myself at that moment. I made all of this happen for me. And as for my old boyfriend Calvin, he was right. He ended up going to the NBA, but I was not checking for him. Life was fine as wine. And period. Great story. Great story, Lexa. Lyrical Lexa. Great story. Whoo. Wowzers, right? That was good. Okay, I got a sandwich from earlier. Let me just take a bite. This is a non-chick veggie wrap. It's a Caesar salad veggie non-chick wrap. I'll put a little sazey on it and take a little bitey bite. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Don't judge me. I have baked. They're baked. They're not even fried. They baked. That one was really good, right? All right. The next one is Peggy Ware's short story, Straight Road Lies Ahead. Let's see how long it is. Ours is long too. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. This one is so long. This is going to be the last one for the night because this one is long. I mean, I was hoping that somebody also did the girl, where the girl is getting signed. You know, I think one person may have done that. I think one person did do that. My eyeshadow, gratitude. Put these back on because that bitch can't see nothing. Okay, this is straight road lies ahead. Some say winding roads without signs are deceiving, but I learned that straight road carries all the lies. Our love was different. It was like hanging upside down from a tree limb in a field of daisies, looking at the world at a different angle. When upright, the dizziness, the distorted view all seemed normal. Miss Caroline in Miss Caroline, as in Caroline Real Estate Agency, was busy making sure everything was in its place. She was so excited about the prospective client. This was one of the most prestigious residents in Polk Parish, St. Leon. Excuse me, was final in Polk Parish, St. Leon. God damn! Wait a minute. St. Leon was finally getting the notoriety that it deserved. It was a town built on old money that was quickly dying off, and the beneficiaries weren't staying there to spend it. I wasn't any different, minus the money part. I left everything I knew, cautious warnings, good upbringings, and common sense, all for self discovery. Hindsight, I was running away. Miss Caroline was in an internship that paid off. Despite being the only black in her agency, and one of the few blacks that lived in St. Leon, I excelled in real estate. One thing she could not deny was my hard work and dedication. She would link her arm around mine as we ended the days together and say, Miss my Dottie, you are my favorite. She pulled me closer to her. I love your fire and tenacity. She taught me the ropes of real estate, said I would go far with her help, and her reach was far as I took her up on the I said it said I would go far with her help, and her reach was far, so I took her up on the offer and excelled in everything she taught me. Even tricks of the trade she knew nothing about. I branched out and soon became one of her top sellers before turning 20. Eventually, I grew bored. I knew I knew Miss Caroline had stakes in New York, so I asked if I could become more involved with affairs there. She wasn't happy to see me go, but agreed to my request on the condition that I don't stay away too long. I leased a suite in a hotel in Midtown, and during the day, I worked hard for the elite, finding the perfect escapism for their lavish lifestyle. Then at night, I found the perfect escapism for Dottie Dentry. On my 21st birthday, I had enough of New York. I quietly slipped out of my surprise birthday party that was thrown by a client that had turned into something more than a client. I don't remember much, just that instead of taking a plane, I was in my car driving from one city to the next until eventually I was parked in the front yard of my childhood home. Mm. Miss Caroline called after a few days of me settling in. I told her there was a change of plans and I was no longer in New York. She didn't question my decision. She just put on her southern politeness and said, "Well, okay, let me know when you get situated in your new place." And I did. She was surprised I chose to live so far from civilization. She tried to place me in one of those new condos that was built off of Melody Circle. It's the least I can do, she insisted. I turned her down and I didn't have the heart to tell her I may not be returning to her employment. I don't know if I can call Miss Caroline a friend. I didn't put a lot of stock in that word. However, we have come a long way. I addressed her prejudices toward me long ago. how when I first started, she didn't know where to place me, so she mostly assigned me to accounts that were, to put it politely, of an ethnic background. And when she would say my name, it sounded like girl was added to the end of it. How sometimes her looks as were as if she was polishing me over with the straighter hair and lighter skin. She cried when I confronted her and when I told her I was proud of who I am and where I came from. She explained that as a southern white woman, she was taught to always try to fix things, and finally confessing her in her southern drawl, her error was not realizing some things don't need fixing. Some things don't need fixing. Why did she need me to drive 3 hours to show this house? Caroline had called me early one morning after 6 months of me comfortably adjusting to my move back to Mama Bell, and I lived. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait. Sorry, guys. Caroline had called me early one morning after 6 months of me comfortably adjusting to moving back where Mama Bell and I lived. It was outside of the city, away from everything and everyone. Dottie, the client is requesting you specifically, says Caroline. I listened to her excited voice and asked, what's their name or at least the estate they are registered under? Now, Dottie, you know as well as I do that we promise our clients full confidentiality with us. I don't know any more than that, I'm telling you. The potential buyers were adamant on anonymity. She stated that they were interested in Mr. Howell old plantation cottage across the bridge. Miss Caroline loved the place. There were beautiful magnolia trees that lined the walkway, a large backyard, and a beautiful pond. He passed away a few years back. I had I had history there too. My first year of meeting Tariq, my best friend, Mariah convinced us to skip last period and sneak on to Mr. Howe's property to swim in his pond. It was one of my happier moments before everything ended. I look back now and I realize there was a warning left on that day when I saw her kiss Tariq to when I saw her kiss Tariq to his surprise, and she laughed it off as if she always did her actions. After Caroline's persistency, I agreed to show the house, but not before I checked things out for myself. I rolled over questions in my head. Who knew who knew I was home? I guess that is not a major red flag. I was known to travel from state to state for a client, but who knew about the property? It was on a private listing. Invitation only had it. It was on a private listing, invitation only, and it was a short list. Could it be? Two names came to mind. Caroline may not know who the potential buyer is, but I had connections too. Connections made from a fear of being blindsided, a lesson I learned the hard way from people I thought I knew and even loved. After a few string pulling, it turned out to be what, or better yet, who I suspected. So I sat back and agreed to be the rabbit. She said, she said it's a couple looking to expand their family. They wanted they want a quiet place away from the hustle and grime of the city life. I thought to myself, are they going public now after all these years? Miss Caroline took both of my hands in hers and said, I'm going to leave you to your magic. I know you like to be to yourself before showing. They'll be here in an hour. Also, they have your number if they need to get in touch with you. LOVE, it was part of a three-piece set. Eat and Pray were the other two hanging in on the kitchen wall. That word love, full of deception, spelled backwards, and you would see the true meaning. I snatched it off the wall and threw it in the trash. I tried to calm myself down, but the longer I waited, the angrier I got. It is a possibility that it's not them, I reassured myself. I have blown everything out of proportion. I whispered, I'll be good. It was a way to ward off my breathing attacks and cool the heat that rushed over my face. A remedy I prescribed to myself when I was a child and did not understand what was happening to me. I haven't had an attack in years, not even when I was left standing alone in my pain. I sipped a glass of water slowly while glaring at the wine poured up to offer to the prospective buyers. Miss Caroline believed in giving her clients the full experience, whatever it was, just as long as they signed on the dotted line. I fought off the temptations to down the bottle. I paused and realized what I needed was fresh air, and the grand backyard had all I could inhale. A great selling point. I noticed my phone had a new text. It was from the potential buyer. So sorry, stuck in traffic on I-49. They didn't get the memo that was sent warning them of the construction work being done. I replied back, "No problem, I'll be here." Finally, I felt I could relax a little. I had at least another hour before they would arrive. With that, I took my shoes off and my blazer, grabbed a towel from the patio chair, and sat under the tree and leaned back. I reached for my purse and pulled out a plastic bag where a single joint lay. Oh, I took it out and rolled it under my nose and inhaled. I returned it back into the plastic bag and placed the bag back in my purse. Mama Bill would have a fit if she knew I was smoking weed, or does she already know? Was she with me when I created these secrets? I smiled at her memory. I'm sure she would say, "Go get me a switch." Sitting under that tree allowed me to reflect on certain events that occurred in my life and question, do I blame Tariq and Mariah for my mistakes? I can't be that petty, I thought. I could blame Mr. Willard. It was his suggestion to have me show the new student around on his first day at this new school. He was standing there unsuspecting, not very tall, darker than caramel but lighter than dark, his lips pink and thin. His head was oddly shaped but not enough to be unattractive. His hair was coarse enough and curly enough. He had deep creases on his forehead, and where his hairline sit was a mole in the upper left corner. Child, I gotta give this hip a break. Wait a minute now. I gotta give this hip a break, honey. Let me charge the computer. Mm. Woo, I gotta lay down off this little hip, honey. I mean, mm. No, I'm taking another bite of my wrap. Miss Becky, it almost sounds like you describing your husband, Mr. What? mm, mm. Okay. Mm. That little hip was stiff, honey. Wait a minute. Mm. All right. We ready? He had deep creases on his forehead, and where his hairline sit was a mole in the upper left corner. His eyes were haunting and deep set. He definitely made an impression on me, even if no one paid particular attention to him. Maybe because everything he had on was outdated. Mr. Willard announced he was from Cuba and instructed the class to make him feel welcomed and then told him where he can take a seat. Oh, Cuba, I like that. Class was over and I introduced myself. When he spoke, I was surprised and a little shocked at his accent. I was embarrassed by my ignorance. He talked with J's and with the constant frown that made him more intense than he really was. I asked stupid questions about his ethnicity. He asked what about his ethnicity. He asked what, not because of a language barrier, but because of my ignorance barrier. With all my education and obsession with Atlantis, why didn't I think all black people were still stuck in the lies of history books? He asked another question, this time not in response to one I had asked, but instead of answering him, I was caught up in what his perception of me was, what his deep set eyes saw. Did he see a pretty girl dressed up in all her grandmother's intentions? Did he see her thick hair that was pressed out to hide her coils, and when wet, it looked like a cotton patch with no rows to walk through? I wouldn't get my answer that day, but later, when we weren't 14 and 15, he compared me to the last breath of a dying man longs to keep. Needless to say, he was good with no words. The day went by pretty quick despite our awkward start. We spent much of our time talking about shared interests and my love for the lost world of Atlantis. I hadn't realized I was late for cheerleader practice. My last period was gym class in his algebra. That's where we departed. It was nice showing you around, Tariq. He smiled as if suddenly realizing I was the only person he knew. He shook my hand and said something I didn't quite hear and started down the hall. As he walked away, I felt like he needed me not just that day, but forever. Mariah slammed into me, pulling my arm. Come on, you don't want to be late, she laughed. Time passed, and Tariq, Mariah, and I were inseparable. He inquired of me about styles and the latest happenings. The most important tip I gave him was that you don't have to break the bank to look good. The most important tip he gave me is that not everything is what it seems. Mariah was always in the shadows doing her thing. The three of us had become close, best friends, which is why it took me by surprise when Mariah started flirting with Tariq. She replaced his name with the word handsome, and he would catch her compliment with a big smile. I should not have been jealous, but I was, even though me and Tariq were just friends. Her action stung a little, especially when she had made it clear he was not her type and he was not at all good looking. Mm. A couple of months passed, and Tariq had become a regular at my house, staying for dinner, sharing jokes with Mama Bill. Their first encounter was not pleasant. It almost got him a missing limb. I had left him in the kitchen while I went to see where Mama Bill was. Upon my return, she had him pent up with a scolding. He was caught cutting a piece of cornbread she had cooling on the stove. I confessed, Mama Bill, I forgot to tell him the rules of the house. It's my fault. He gave an earnest apology that won her over, but he was a little unsure of her forgiveness of his actions until I said she could have done worse. Mama Bell really liked Tariq. She even became protective of him in him of her. She would tell me one day, "You're gonna look up, and he's going to feel like more than just a friend." His family appreciated me too, the whole heap of them. They were beautiful people. Time spent with them was filled with singing and fast talking, eating and loving. Senior year, Tariq had come into his own. Girls were taking notice. He was on a football team, and with that came a social status and popularity, not to mention having been discovered by Mrs. Tran in music class to have a beautiful voice and encouraged to pursue his talent. So him and a few of his friends decided to start a band. Rehearsal came on days when he didn't have football practice. Needless to say, me and Tariq did not spend much time together. My senior year was a lot different. Mama Bell had passed away. One morning I went to bring her coffee. She never woke up. Senior year was supposed to be a time of celebration, new beginnings. Instead, I was planning a funeral. I felt lost. I had won an essay contest to be selected as an intern at a well-known real estate agency, but now it all felt pointless. The day of Mama Bell's funeral, Tariq had found me sitting under a cotton tree, the tree Mama Bell warned that snakes were always in. It was in a field where only the cows bear witness to its leaves falling. I had taken Tariq there once so he could scream away the anger, his dad's deportation, and the fear of now being Scream away the anger of his dad's deportation and the fear of now being head of his family. I went to find Mama Bill there that day, even though her casket had been laden with red dirt. Tariq did not say anything. He saw me. He just sat on the ground next to me, watching as my tears streamed down and dampened the front of my blouse. I was surprised to see him despite his fondness for Mama Bill. We had really talked in a while. He was busy with college applications and everything else that came with being sought after. I didn't look at him. I just laid my head on his shoulders and we watched the dragonflies dart in and out to break the silence. I felt him, my Tariq sharing in my pain, insisting I give it all to him, and in that moment I needed him to take it. I grabbed his hand and laid it to my face and allowed him to wipe my tears. I looked up at him, shadowing his movements, capturing his eyes, and we kissed our first kiss. Yeah, she is in love with him. We paused. I wanted more, and I could feel he did too. I straddled his lap. He looked surprised. I could see he needed more reassurance. That was that what was about that was shit. He looked surprised. I could see he needed more reassurance that what was happening was okay. So I leaned back and pulled him to me. That day, the day Mama Bill was buried, was the day that the cows saw more than the leaves falling. There was no new text, so I decided to call. The phone rang only once. The person on the other end recognized the number. They answered, apologizing and explaining they were only 10 minutes away. I'm so sorry. I hope you don't have another showing. Miss Caroline gave me the impression that you would be available for a few hours. Yes, that's correct, I reassured her. I was calling to make sure everything was all right. Excuse me. Oh, yes, yes, I will be there soon. Once again, my apologies, she repeated. The voice over the phone was not familiar to me. Could I have been wrong? Mariah's voice was much raspier. Could I have been mistaken? This could be an actual client looking for a house. Am I disappointed or relieved? I don't know. Okay, Dottie, get it together, I whispered. I put on my blazer, stepped back into my shoes, and prepared myself for the pending client. I smoothed things over. Oh, excuse me. Placing the towel back, new and perfect, and making sure I looked the part. I entered the side door that led to the living room and hadn't made it past the dining room before I gasped for breath and stopped in my tracks. Standing in front of me was Mariah, looking almost happy to see me. Her outfit was perfect as usual, skin still matching the autumn leaves, haircut in the latest style. This style in particular has one side shaved and sporting gray and pink coloring. Why I knew her hair was gonna be cut like that. Why I knew her hair was gonna be like that. Mariah and I were best friends, of course. She would argue and say more like sisters. We promised to always be there for each other. Like when I walked in on her kissing our 11th grade female high school teacher's assistant. That was the day that she came out to me, and I swore I would never tell. And that time she was too drunk to drive, and I hid her keys and called a cab. Not to mention countless times of holding her braids back while she vomited the one too many shots she drank at the bar. Mariah had it all. They had planned a boyfriend that had a plan in a future. The daughter of prominent evangelists with their mega churches posted on all the billboards, and I was the friend who, when her family found out she was gay and disowned her, promised I would always be her family, and she was there for me too. The night when I needed her the most, me and Tariq was in a more grown-up relationship, making grown-up decisions. We moved in together, sharing bills. Well, mostly me paying all the bills, but I did not mind. He had big plans. His singing career was taking off to the point they were getting ready to sign him. He swore my days working double shifts at Target was over nothing but straight roads ahead. He would say, I was not overjoyed when he chose music over college, but he didn't know that. The music industry seemed superficial. The few people I met when I was with him in the studio seemed fake, more of opportunists. He had he had started staying late at the studio, so I was spending a lot of nights alone. My headaches were getting more intense, and a childhood condition had returned where I could not breathe at night. Mama Bell described it as if a cat was taking my breath. One night, Tariq let it slip that Mariah was at some of his recording sessions. I was more stunned than hurt since he told me that it was best that I don't accompany him in the studio for safety reasons. And up and coming rapper had been shot leaving a recording. I questioned why she was there. He made me feel embarrassed for asking the questions, then I felt embarrassed for even having the thought. We made love that morning and I left for work. I I watched him I I watched him come through. He had oh okay. I watched him come through. He had cute almond shaped eyes and a caramel hue complexion. He headed straight to the toy section. The next time he was in my view was when he was at my cash register. 2 boxes of cereal and milk was his purchase. I smiled and asked, You found everything you need? He said yes, but then proceeded to ask, Y'all don't have a solid red dump truck with no stripes? I asked, Did you check the bin? He nodded yes. I'm sorry, I said. If it's not in the bin, then that's all we have. $12.24. It rang up. He gave me exactly $13. I handed him 76 cents in change. What's that? He asked as he reached for his change. What's what? I returned the question. That spot on your hand, he said. Oh, it's a birthmark. He seemed to be satisfied with that answer I gave him. Then he left as quickly as he came in. It had been a while since anyone noticed my birthmark. I used to be self conscious about it, and over time it seemed to have shrunken, except for now it looked larger than normal. I looked up, and the store manager was walking fast towards my register. Dottie, turn your register off. I need to speak with you in the break area. When I left from the meeting, I had been fired. It was comical actually being interrogated over a stolen toy truck and a child no older than 7. I laughed at the pettiness of it all. He didn't like that. I told him to go fuck himself. That night, that might have done it. I don't know what happened to the little boy, but in my mind, I wrote him a happy ending. I felt relief after being fired and saying what I said. It was a time when I didn't have courage to speak out, like the time when after one of our regional high away games, the team stopped at McDonald's. Oh, okay. Stopped at a McDonald's. A mother and her 3 children came in. You could tell the world had not been kind to them, but my friends did not care, and they snickered and made rude gestures behind their back. And despite Mama Bell's teachings of being kind to others, I went along with the shit. I started telling myself, I'll do better. And I did. I wasn't lost. I still had the intern job with Miss Caroline, thanks to Tariq's encouragement. Along with him promising me the stars and the moon, I was happy up until I turned the key and opened the door to an empty apartment. Mm. We were robbed, was my first thought. Only later to find out just me and my dignity. Just me of my dignity. She was robbed of her dignity, she said. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, I gotta find my place. We're okay. Wait. Turn the key, open the door to an empty apartment. Were we robbed? Was my first thought, only to later find out just me of my dignity. I called Tariq and nothing. He had blocked me or disconnected his phone. Either way, there was no answer. I slid down the bedroom wall, phone in hand, and stayed there until hours had passed. And then I realized there was someone else to call. Mariah. She had to know something. After all, she had accompanied him to recordings. I held my breath as the phone rang. Hello, Mariah, it's me. I'm looking for Tariq. Have you seen him? No, we haven't spoken in weeks. Why? What's going on? Have you tried his mother? Yes, I said. Then we proceeded to go down the list of possibilities. She played the part of a concerned friend and had convinced me she had no other knowledge than what I had told her. If not for me and my worry forgetting to hang up the phone and overheard a guy in the background pronouncing his Y's like J's, it was Tariq. I didn't remember hearing anything after the words, for God's sake, you have to tell her I'm about to become a mother. Now I want to fight this bitch. He gotta tell her you supposed to be her best motherfucking friend. Oh, girl, let me eat a chip. They bake. They bake chips. Mm, mm, mm. Last I heard, you were in New York and you left because things got complicated. Are you okay? Where are you now? I ignored the question and asked, are you serious? She stood there like she genuinely believed we were still in a friendship. Have you been stalking me? I asked. Dottie, we live in an age of social metapedia. It's not hard to find someone. Plus, our circles are closer than you think. Well, I'm not trying to be a part of whatever circle you have going on. My words did not discourage her. What happened to the love? What? On the wall, it's supposed to be eat, pray, love. I almost felt foolish she plays games like this. Oh, it must have fell in the trash. I walked to fetch it out. When I turned around, she had moved in closer, startling me. I was trying to keep my distance. Dottie, I miss you. Us, she said. I'm sorry I was not there for you when Tariq. She didn't finish. A lot was going on. I'm not surprised, Mariah. You had abandonment issues. You could never stand 10 toes down when anyone needed you. Say it, Dottie. You mean when you needed me? I just glared at her. I have always been there for you, Dottie. When? Was it during Mama Bill's funeral? Because I don't recall you being there. Was it when I was in the hospital when I couldn't breathe? She said, wait, you don't remember? Dottie, I was there during those times. Oh, I know it was when Tariq needed someone in his bed. That's it. Hold up. That's what you think? Dottie, me and Tariq did not sleep together. I promise. I would never do that to you. Stop right there. At this point, my voice was elevated. She was not going to dismiss my hurt. I did not care what the world thought anymore. The world had taken so much from me, made me an orphan, turned me into someone I did not know in New York, aborted my child, made me an orphan, turned me into someone I did not know in New York, aborted my child. Everything good to me felt like fog in my hands. I screamed, I heard you. She looked off balance. You know, when you said you have to tell her, for God's sake, I'm about to be a mother. Dottie, I need you to listen to me, please. Please. Tears started welling in her eyes, her hands pressing towards me. I relaxed a little. Sure, why not? I told her, let's hear the perfect lie. The lie she lives in. She continued, that night I was on cloud nine. I was in love. I was about to be a mom. I wanted to share this with my best friend. But before I could tell Tariq Before I could, Tariq was at the door knocking in a rage. I tried my best to calm him down. He kept saying, I can't let anything happen to her. He was rambling. He wanted me to help him, keep you away from to keep you away from him, he said. I don't understand. I don't understand. The things didn't go the way they were supposed to, and it's for the best. He explained. Tariq was so convincing until. Let me go back and reread because I'm confused. She continued. That night, I was on cloud nine. I was in love. I was about to be a mom, and I wanted to share this with my best friend. But before I could, Tariq was at the door knocking in a rage. I tried my best to calm him down. He kept saying, I can't let anything happen to her. He was rambling. He wanted me to help him, keep you away from him, he said. Things didn't go the way that they were supposed to, and it's for the best, he explained. Tariq was so convincing until I agreed to help him. But I knew if I could tell you, but I knew if he could tell you more or some of what he told me, maybe you could help. When you called, I hated lying to you. I purposely left the phone on so you can hear the conversation, but it wasn't much said after that. And when I went to get him some water from the fridge, he was gone. But I now know it wouldn't have mattered if he had said more. Your sense of reasoning had checked out after the word mother, and she was right. Last year, Tariq tried to reconnect with me. It was after his latest video had wrapped. He wanted me to come up and celebrate with him. I was surprised he thought of me. You know, him being so in demand these days. I told him my life is different now. I'm a mother, a wife. I don't party like that anymore. However, after much convincing, I agreed to come. Dottie, I want to ask you something. Has Tariq contacted you in any way? Still shocked at her audacity, I hesitated to answer her, but then sternly stated no. Are you sure? Maybe email or encrypted text? No, I repeated. I know you have every right not to believe me or listen to me. Her eyes scanned mine for a hint of a lie, and then she smiled. I'm glad. Dottie, he is not the same Tariq. If he reaches out to you, don't answer. Before I could ask why, a beautiful woman with long locks passed her ass. She had the front up and the back in a free fall. Came rushing through the door behind the beautiful chocolate dot, racing towards Mariah, yelling, Mommy, jumping in her arms for safety. The beauty was laughing, proclaiming, I tried to stop him. LJ, come here, but mommy, he laughed. Mariah, while holding LJ, proudly grabbed the lady's hand and said, Baby, this is Dottie. I just stood there a bit confused. Dottie, this is my wife, Genevieve, and our son, LJ. Oh, Dottie, I finally get to meet you. Your beauty matches everything Mariah has told me. I stayed outside and walked the grounds. I knew you guys needed time to catch up. Raya had explained it was sort of a surprise reunion. She was genuine in her compliment. Her energy was so light, unlike what me and Mariah was caught up in. She had strong indigenous features. I like to imagine she came from Atlantis. She definitely came from class and money. She was a lawyer, the kind that wanted to make her own way without the help of the family trust fund. Before our meeting ended, LJ had leaped into my arms. I couldn't help myself. I found myself studying his features. Who did he look like? Was he a combination of Tarika and Mariah? Or did he look like Genevieve? Which one was his biological mother? No, this is not my concern anymore. What happened in the past is over. Me and Mariah did not continue our conversation. I had a feeling she wanted me to strongly heed her warning. I asked her why was she moving back home. She smiled and said there's no place like home and she wanted LJ to grow up where values still mattered. She expressed the desire for us to keep in touch. I had a feeling she was running from something or someone. That's why we all come back home. I called Miss Caroline on my way back. She was extremely happy to know that Mr. Howell old estate sold. Genevieve had already decided when she first laid eyes on it. Miss Caroline said, "What am I going to do if one day you decide to up and quit on me?" And that's when I remembered I hadn't told her about me possibly not returning. She ended with, "We'll have lunch soon to go over the preliminaries. Be safe. You have a long drive ahead, and there's a thunderstorm coming. Kisses." I returned the sentiment. I drove in silence for a while, but the events of the day kept replaying in my head. I turned on the radio to silence the noise. Not a good idea. It was Tariq's latest single playing. I recognized it because I was the inspiration for it. It was mine before it became the world's. Its conception happened during one of my episodes. I'll say episodes since the doctor termed it that because they couldn't diagnose it, even though it resembled asthma. It was not asthma, but it restricted my breathing. The doctors instructed Mama Bell, if it happens again, put her in steam. There were no major signs of it coming on except for an that he itchy pond and heat that would cause my face to simmer. I was at the kitchen sink and Tariq reached around me to put a cup in the water. Suddenly, I was in a memory in Mama Bell's room watching quietly as she takes the last sip of her first cup of coffee of the day. She would place the cup in both palms, rolling it and tilting it until she was satisfied with what she saw. She had learned to wait till she put the cup down before I would interrupt her. I had learned to wait to put till she put the cup down before I interrupted her. Her second cup, if on Sunday, was some of the her her second cup, if on Sunday, was with some of the members from the church and always the pastor. They would come over for dinner to talk about church business. I would come and gather all dishes. Pastor Jacob always was the last to finish. He'll say, "Baby, I'll bring it in when I'm finished." It was a game he played. The last to finish, so polite to bring the cup to the sink. So I close, so I close. I could so close I could smell the coffee on his breath and com, feel his hand conveniently touch my bottom. Oh, this day he had planned on feeling a firm breast. I heard his thoughts and I felt his intentions. He reached over and before he could grab, I turned to face him. I stared deep in his eyes where the soul's supposed to be and he froze. There was foam coming from his mouth. He fell to the floor and standing behind him was Mama Bill. Her Our eyes latched, then suddenly she called Deacon Chewy. "Pastor then fell out," she said, looking at me with the knowing. It was announced he had a stroke. No one could have suspected it otherwise, being 60 years old. He was in perfect condition. That memory caused an attack. I couldn't breathe. Tariq rushed me nervously to the bathroom. He hurried and turned on the shower and put towels in the bottom of the door. He curled up with me on the bathroom floor, rocking me back and forth, asking me to breathe for him, to just breathe. Listening to the song, I began to cry, the bass sounding like his heart beating that night as he held me. "Breathe for me one last" was the last chorus line, and the lyrics like the ruins of Atlantis. I started crying with the rain and the anger wanting to go where the rain drained, but I wasn't ready for it to start storming. I needed to get home where it was safe. I couldn't see through my tears. I couldn't see through the storm. I made it I made it to turn I made it to my turn off. I just needed to keep straight down the road and I'll be safe. There was no street lights, no neighbors warning it was too late to stop. As I hit part of the road that had started flooding, it caught me off guard and made my car spin out. I opened the door and stepped into I stepped in water not enough to drown, just enough to get pissed off. The rain kept coming down harder and there was no one to help. I got back in the car, soaking wet, and held to the steering wheel and screamed. I screamed for all the fucking rain to stop. And it did. Suddenly, an eerie silence had replaced my crying. I felt suspended in time. I lifted my head up. There was no wind, no rain, and the ground looked less wet. I didn't want to think too hard about it. The rain had stopped on its own. Once I got myself out the mud and in dry clothes, I sat curled up in Mama Bell's chair, feeling a little guilty at screaming at the rain. She always said it was the Lord, let the Lord do his work. For some reason, I felt the need to apologize. I laughed. I heard the phone text. It was Genevieve thanking me for finding a perfect home. Hold on, y'all. This chatting.
Hey, girl.
Hey.
What you doing?
On the live reading the short stories.
Oh, okay. Weird.
What you doing?
I ain't on nothing. Our movie just went off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, girl, on the live reading the short stories.
Okay. I'll go on the bed.
Okay, I'll call you back.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thanking me for finding a perfect home for her family. I text back with a sincere reply. I decided to have my late dinner in front of my laptop, my mind reflecting on Mariah's words. I still did not trust her, no matter how nice her wife was. I still remembered her kissing Tariq from long ago, and again, only Miss Caroline knew I had moved back home. And as far as I know, my sister doesn't know. Is this all a coincidence? How did she know I was in New York and no longer live there? I still have my address and no one should have suspected me moving. Please, I just need to see you, no strings attached. Come find me in the ruins of Atlantis. The email read. When Tariq got when Tariq got his claim to fame, he wanted everyone to know. He purchased a nice home for his family, but nothing like what he bought himself. He built a casino in the middle of Pierce Street, where St. Leon Boating Club reside. Not many of the locals appreciated the view. He named it the ruins of Atlantis. I suspected it was an ode to me for my love of the forgotten world. When he was my when he was my Tariq, he'd ask me if I would rescue him out of the ruins of Atlantis if I if ever he was lost. Even though he rarely stayed there, he had a penthouse on the top floor. He asked me to join him in celebrating his birthday that's coming up 2 days from now. I did not feel any way I got the email, but now it deserves a second look. Lying to Mariah was easy. She did not deserve my honesty. I tried hard to stay clear of Tariq and Mariah. Meanwhile, it seemed they were more intrigued with what was going on in my life than I was with theirs. I replied, I'll be there. Never mind how he was able to obtain my email. Once again, I decided to be the rabbit. I closed my laptop and headed to bed. Morning came in the rain. The rain hand came back to finish what it started. I sat on the porch looking at Mama's morning glories while drinking some lavender tea. I feel better despite a restless night. The dream had me back under the cotton tree where I had fallen asleep. Mama Bell was beckoning me to wake up. I could see her in a blur. She was pointing. Can't you see those two snakes about to bite you? I woke up saying the words, take her. Take her what? I woke up before getting an answer. Frustrated with the dream, I realized I was holding a cup in my hand tight, like it had all the answers. As I went to take the last sip, the lavender leaves formed an image in the form of a room lit dark with a shadow man peering. A stray dog barked in the distance and brought me out of my trance. Excuse me. I was it was then I remembered the email sent. Hold on, I got to readjust again. Oh, ooh, girl. Ooh, yeah. Whew. Wait a minute. Let me readjust again, y'all. Y'all move around and readjust. Oh, y'all speaking of tidy gratitude. Okay. What y'all think is about to happen? Because she's saying that they lying to her. She done had this little dream. What do y'all think is about to happen? What y'all think about to happen? You think he needs a sacrifice? Mm, we're about to see. Mm, okay. He need one? Mm, let's see. Mm. Take this off the charger for a minute. Shit. In my name. Okay. I feel like Mama Bell is warning her in her sleep. Like she's giving her, or maybe it's Mariah that needs one. But either way, she's being warned. She said, "Don't you see them two snakes about to bite you?" Okay. Okay. Remember the email sent. Okay. I was in the perfect outfit. It was a gold Tina Turner type dress. Tariq had bought it when we were happy and anticipating a long life together. He said the gold matched perfect with my skin. He wanted me to wear it with my hair wild and out, all in its rage. Put it on, baby, so I can see what it looks like on you. On you. I stood in the mirror. It was nice. My skin shimmered. In high school, it was sparkly, but as I got older, the shimmer came. Lovers after Tariq were like schoolboys licking melting chocolate off of a silver wrapper. Wait, what? Okay. But Tariq, he always took his time touching it like it was a finger paint, inhaling it like I was a rare rose. He would put his nose so deep into my skin, I felt oxygen leave his body. I got pregnant during that time, but not long enough to celebrate. Why am I here? I thought it was not to rekindle a lost love. Maybe I just need an explanation, a better ending. Okay, let me see what y'all say real quick. The two snakes can be Mariah and the wife. Yes. True, true, true. See, I ain't think about that. You right. What we talking about? Okay. Good evening. Okay. Greetings, y'all. Greetings, greetings. Okay. Maybe I just need an explanation, a better ending. I parked off to the side of the hotel before driving up to the ballet. Maybe I was having second thoughts. I watched the elaborate cars pull up with their elaborate guests. I was too familiar with this scene, familiar enough to know I did not like it. I was about to meet the new Tariq, the one that was described in Us magazine as a bad boy gone badder, but with style. I watched an interview on one of the late night shows. His words didn't reflect the family oriented, respectful guy I grew up with. Excuse me, and neither did his looks. The mold that I loved had been removed, and the beautiful frown lines had been pressed out to resemble something short of plastic. I suspect Botox. Even his beautiful skin looked a shade lighter. Yet, nothing was as shocking as his eyes. They were empty, void, tired. My nerves are different. inside of this reality. I felt cold all over except for my face. I didn't know any of those people that introduced themselves to me, but it felt as if they knew me. I couldn't find a familiar face in a crowd. Where was his family? I wondered. His friends from school. All that were in attendance were industry people. I was met by a tall, muscular guy. He explained he was to escort me to the penthouse where Tariq was waiting. Shit. Shit. That's getting scary, ain't it? Right. Is something happening? Is something happening? Ain't nobody there but her? No. I welcomed the departure. The noise was loud, but that didn't bother me. It was the random stares, the knowing. I knew no one knew me here, but everyone I met seemed to be privy of something about me. I was beginning to second guess my decision. Are you okay, Miss Dentry? My escort asked. Yes, I responded, unsure. As we approached the private elevator, an elegant lady was waiting at the entry. The escort put the key in and pushed the appropriate floor. She entered when we entered. She gave a faint smile and I smiled back. It seemed forever before the elevator reached the penthouse. She stared at me and I stared straight ahead. Mm. When the when the elevator doors finally opened, there were two more men similar to my escort who were waiting outside of the penthouse, and I stepped off the elevator. The lady smiled again and said, I hope you have a happy reunion. Before I could turn around, the doors were closing. What the fuck? He said he's cloned and got no soul. Molly, you in danger, girl. Listen, that is crazy because now she's on a penthouse floor. Where's she gonna go? Where would she go? She can't run. It's already somebody that's escorting her, and then the two men at the elevator door. She's not gonna be able to go nowhere. Mm-mm. And how does bitch know that she's there as this reunion? Oh my god. Okay. Once inside, I was greeted with the dimly lit room. I was a little surprised to see it was not a private party. Tariq turned and met me out of the shadows. He began to clap his hands as he approached. There was a white gentleman in the corner with a champagne glass up to his mouth. He was unrecognizable, and on the couch sat a couple strangely whispering. Tariq got everyone's attention, and they all came in closer. He hugged me like before, putting his nose in my neck, and said he missed me. I looked over his shoulders, embarrassed. Everyone were looking, waiting, and then I thought I saw Mama Bill. I blinked to correct my sight, and then his friends started to look different. They looked desperate. Ooh, oh shit! They looked desperate. Their tongues had fell out of their mouths, and their faces had melted off. I pulled away from Tariq. He looked shocked. I looked I looked at his guest again, and everything was normal. I grabbed my head to stop it from pounding. I began having shortness of breath. My birthmark seems to have spread up my arm. He said, Ancestor Zone, I wish a bitch would. Listen, now the birthmark, remember before she said the birthmark kept getting bigger on her fucking hand, right? So now she said it seemed like it's just stretched up her arm. Now she looked at them and said they fucking faces like they done melted off. Okay. Said my birthmark seems to have spread up my arm. I moved towards the door, Tariq yelling, What's wrong? I feel it coming, my breathing more and more shallow. Mama Bell greeted me at the door. I was back home in her arms. Are you home to stay? She asked, Well, if so, I better tell you about your blood. Suddenly, a piercing sound came, someone screaming my name. Dottie, wake up. I open my eyes, unaware of my surroundings. I feel something sticky in my hands. Light is coming in and out. The last light shows what looks like blood. I jumped up screaming. I'm in a car. Someone is driving so fast I feel every curve. It's going to be all right. You're okay. Please calm down. Just stay down, please. It's a female voice. My head is pounding. I'm crying. What's happening? She speaks again. This time I recognize the voice. It's Mariah. It can't be. I panic. I start wailing my arms and my feet. Please, Dottie, as she tussles with one hand on the steering wheel. You're gonna get us killed. Ooh, shit. You're gonna get us killed. Pull over, I scream. What did you do? How did I get here? Why am I covered in blood? I will explain everything. Just let me get us somewhere safe, Dottie. I wouldn't listen. I tried to open the door. Mariah panicked and pressed on her brakes, then pulled over to the side of the road. She pleaded, "We don't have much time. Why is there blood everywhere? What happened? I'm not going into any further until you tell me," I demanded. Mariah took a deep breath and looked everywhere except at me. Mariah, I screamed again. She looked at me exhausted. The blood is not yours, she said with hesitation. The blood is Tariq's. Dottie, you killed him. Mariah driving had calmed and more of a steady hum. The streetlights had ended several miles back, and I sat quietly while the headlights shined on a sign that read, "Straight road lies ahead." That's it. That's the end of that. That is Peggy Ware's story. Straight roads lie. She a whole fucking shapeshifter and clawed his ass to death. Okay? Like, where the fuck did Mariah come from? Why was Mariah there? What was the situation? She told her, don't talk to him. Like, ignore him. Like, he said that was fire. Listen, we need more. That's why we're going to publish these stories, man. That's why we have to publish these, man. This is going to be great. Miss Peggy, that was good. That was good. That was good. This one ain't long. We can read this one too. It's Christina Williams. Okay. So if y'all need a scratch, we can scratch. Let me put something on my lips. I really want to get a sip of something to drink. I have a little smoothie from earlier that I'm gonna take a little. She was there as her guard. When did she get there? Like, when did she come? She knew she was going. She knew she was gonna go. She told her not to go, but she knew the fuck she was going. She told her, don't, like, if he call you, don't talk to him. She knew what the fuck was about to happen. Let me grab my little smoothie and wrap my little half the wrap up my sandwich. Let me grab my little smoothie. I ain't going nowhere. I'm just gonna lean over this bed and grab it. Hold on. Let me wrap my little sandwich back up. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Okay. Whew. Didn't see that one coming. Well, let me stay that up because this was up here for a minute. Say the women in that town are all shapeshifters. Child, boom. Okay. All right. I'm gonna read this one and then I gotta start back work on this dang on workbook, y'all. All right, we ready? Okay. This is from Christina Williams. Young or not, I thought I was in love. Coming from where I'm from, it's what broken people wish for. My mom wasn't much of a mother. As long as we were enrolled in school and injected with the government's poison on a timely basis so she could continue to receive and reap all the benefits of having 8 kids. All she would do is sell the stamps to the highest bidder for her chance at the next bump for her and her wannabe friends. It's like she didn't care if we ate or not as long as she got high. If not, it was hell to pay. If not, it was hell to pay even for even being her child. Not like I wanted to be. Either way, I had my escape, my best friend Ebony. We had been best friends since third grade. We did everything together. I go to her family functions and holiday events. It actually it made me feel like somebody at those moments. Middle school was depressing. Being a poor kid, I didn't have much. Eb's mom was the best. She took care of me like I was her own. My grades have always been above average. I prayed for scholarships. I couldn't imagine being like my mom. Some days I just felt like I didn't fit in until I met Antoine. Antoine. Okay. Smile beautiful. I think I think about his first words to me every time I look in his eyes. Shocked that he noticed me, but we hit it off well. I figured he just liked natural over the average weave and lashes. His brothers were well known street workers, so he would have small jobs to do for them, and he would bring me along. We became Bonnie and Clyde. He trusted me with his life, I trusted him with mine. That was before he started working at Foot Locker and his brother ended up in jail. He would always have a gift for me. When I saw him, I felt love. 12th grade year, we had prom all planned out, so we both started working at Walmart so we could pay for our dresses. Okay. Aunt fell off in school, started working full time and staying in the studio. He loved rapping, but we were still together. He would take us to and from work, etc. The day of graduation, Eb told me she was pregnant. While crying, I told her, the way I see it, you're grown now. It's your decision. Her mom was very strict to her, but at least she is one. College was college. I started going part time for business. I wasn't going back to living with my mom so I worked as much as I could. And and I have been living in this apartment since I graduated, and being in my own space was soothing to me. Although he was into these although he was into these days were his music, so I started taking real estate classes for my license. Ran into issues with my bank somehow. 1,500 went missing from my bank account. Of course, he denies it and paid for my graduation and stuff, but I still had to dispute and cancel my account. After graduating for my real estate license, I felt powerful as if it was nothing I couldn't do. Eb surprised me with her being on her second child and the engagement between her and her boyfriend since high school. One day, that'd be us, I thought. Anthony had finally got with Antoine. I think she mistaked that. Antoine had finally got what he wanted. We had to move to Atlanta, but I looked at it as a fresh start for us both, for the both of us. I was proud of him. He had chased his dream and became a well known Atlanta rapper from Detroit. His shows were doing numbers. Not being the type to be in the limelight, ugh, not in the not in the limelight. My priorities were more important, so I took advantage of that time to build out of it. I had been looking for a job in between classes. As fame took off, so did the love and respect for me. He was a whole different person. I valued the time we did share because I felt detached from him. He would barely come home or call. I got up and ready for my interview nervously, getting myself together quietly because he was asleep. excuse me, he knew I just had come in, so I left quietly. Completely full of joy, I got the job. I was excited, so I flew home to tell him. For some reason, my calls weren't going through. It felt like my heart dropped. I walked into his stuff being gone. No phone call, no text. I started calling him again, and it said the number was disconnected. Lost, confused, feeling abandoned yet again. I called Ebony. She knew pretty much everything, so she was wondering if we were fighting over something. I kept saying no. I got the job but never got to tell him. I came home to nothing. The condo is paid off, so why would he leave? I had a million questions running through my mind. I wanted to get away and take time to myself. If I was going to visit her, I take time to myself. I was going to go visit her, I told her. She instantly said, "No, absolutely no. You're not about to give up on yourself over no nigga. You got a job. Now just focus on you." Little did she know the company had just moved to Atlanta and had 2 weeks left of construction, so I was able to return to Detroit for a few days. Once I arrived, I decided to pop up to see my best friend and God kids. I needed to be surrounded by love at this point. As I pulled up, I sit there with nothing but rage inside of me. I see Anthony. I think she switched his name because at first it was Antoine, but then she's calling him Anthony. So I'm gonna go with what she's put, which is Anthony. Okay. I see Anthony truck for when he in the city sitting in this bitch driveway. Had to act a complete ass on both of them. So apparently her fiance got a DNA test done for the kids and left this dumb bitch because they wasn't his. So all this time my best friend and boyfriend were having kids together behind my back. She was on the edge of getting kicked out, so he felt that it was time for him to be there for her and the kids to be the man that he says he is. Putting two and two together, he was the only other person who had my bank info, mm, so she had to have stole the money by getting the information from him. That's why he was so quick to just pay it back. She was jealous of me the whole time. Little old me. She couldn't even come to the door, let alone outside. That was the absolute last time that I thought I could trust anyone ever again. 2 years later, life has been amazing. I have truly grown into the woman I was meant to be. Staying in Atlanta, it was the best move for me and my husband. For me, my husband and I are currently planning our grand opening to our very own brokerage company. 23 years old, engaged in opening my own brokerage. I must say, I'm glad I threw away the trash. My baby was a man for a father. My baby has a man for a father 10 years older than me. I'm finally experiencing motherhood. Overall, I'm just thankful for the life I have. Of course, I sold the condo. We're currently waiting on the construction of our new home. They say be careful of wishing of they say be careful of wishing you never went through things. Everything I went through made me the woman I am today. I couldn't be any happier that the situation that the situation was crazy. I never wished them any harm, but unfortunately, Anthony was killed last year after an album release party by a local rapper over some type of deal issues they had going on. Karma's kicking her ass. Last I heard, she was staying with her mom, fighting to keep her kids because his family is going to take them from her due to her living ways. But to each his own, my crown fits perfectly. Well, that was good too. Gratitude, Christina Williams. Okay, okay, okay. We started with 8. We read 3. I think we got 5 more left. Okay, we got 5 more left, and then we'll be picking up the best 5. And out of those 5, we will pick a winner for the $200 prize, and then we will put all of the stories together and have them published. Okay. Greetings to everyone. Love you to life. This was good. Y'all have some great stories. I appreciate your time sitting with me. We'll come back to the table again, y'all. I love y'all to life.